We are in the moral gutter. Words like revenge used to be heard only among the Bizilau Smotriches and the Itamar Ben.
Right. So the idea of revenge is a horror to Aaron David Miller and Amos Harel, because if you're on the left, you think revenge is horrible. But all punishment contains considerable elements of revenge. If you put your kid in a timeout, right, there's an element of vengeance and revenge there because they've just become so annoying. So one of the big differences between the left and right is that people on the right have a much stronger belief in punishment for bad behavior, and people on the left think that punishment and revenge is just really petty and primitive.
Years of the world. Now military units and mainstream colonels are using terms like nakama, revenge, in Hebrew. It's almost part of it.
Right. These leftists are just appalled that the revenge and the desire to punish your enemies is driving people.
It's right. So it's like always the main character chooses somebody not as competent as they are. For example, Obama chose Biden, and then Biden had to choose Kamala. Now Kamala has to choose Waltz.
Could you say menstruating one more time?
I know. I think I've said that more times than I care to.
I hope no one's playing a drinking game.
How toxic is that they put the word men in that?
I have a theory about why the vice president chose Governor Waltz as her running mate. I could very easily be wrong. This is my own personal take. But if you think about it, I think it was more about her opportunity to strike out on her own than it was about any electoral strategy. If you're Kamala Harris, you are handed Biden's record to defend. You are handed your senior staff at the White House. You are handed your campaign platform. You are handed your campaign staff all the way up to the top with 3 months to go.
David Starkey is a giant. His analysis is so much more intelligent than the right-wing provocateurs like Tucker Carlson and Michael Sudovich and Milo Yiannopoulos and Douglas Murray. Here is David Starkey.
Hindu and Pakistani, Hindu Muslim, and I'm afraid between whites and everybody else. What we've really got to understand is that we've had a public policy which has tried to keep enforced silence. I'm an example of it. My own cancellation. There's been a deliberate attempt ever since Enoch Powell's River of Blood speech, the language of which was overblown, but the points that he made were absolutely true, now being proved true even as we speak. Now, unfortunately, the decision was taken that you simply shut people up. If you do not debate a question, if you do not discuss it, if you do everything you can to make it undiscussable, then I'm afraid it's like a sore in the body. It's an untreated wound. It becomes deeper and
So David Starkey is talking about the riots in the United Kingdom against two-tier policing, whereby Muslims aren't held to the same standards as white English, right? Muslims can go around with machetes, and the police show no interest in disarming them.
Deeper and more septic until finally it bursts horribly to the surface. And I'm using a deliberately foul metaphor because what's going on now is foul. Threatening to burn people alive, which is what it amounts to, is monstrous. That sort of rioting is monstrous. But the fact that it's monstrous doesn't mean that there are not real reasons for it. And it's all very well. Starmer is a natural authoritarian. And one of the things we need to talk about, he presents himself as a policeman. We've never had a prime minister who presented himself as a policeman before. We had a great prime minister, Robert Peel, who invented our police force, but with the deliberate idea it was not by force, it was not by violence, it wasn't by water cannons, it was by consent. It wasn't neo-military, it wasn't an army of occupation. And Starmer, of course, represents that worst, that as in so many other ways, continental tendency. And he is every single thing he says, he does, everything that Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, does, makes things worse.
Do you think that multicultural societies can survive without authoritarianism?
Generally not.